All right, hello everyone, and welcome to New Year, New You, No New Diets. Before we get started, just one quick note. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. You can ask your questions in either the chat box or the Q&A. I'll be looking at them both. And at the end of the presentations, I'll read those questions aloud to Allie. So tonight, our speaker is Allie Senatore, the registered dietitian at the ShopRite of Hoboken. She will be reviewing fad or yo-yo diets and why many are not sustainable to support long-term health goals. She will also be discussing how to compose nutritious meals, share tips on how to boost the nutrition for the meals you currently enjoy, and help us navigate healthier options in the real world. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Allie.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be talking to you guys in the new year about dieting and what it means to embark on some new healthy habits. So we're going to go over a lot today, and there's going to be a cooking demo towards the end. So I'm happy to answer all your questions, but we'll just start off with our first slide. So today we're going to go over what is a fad diet. We're going to learn 3 key ways to spot a fad diet. We're going to review some popular yo-yo diets or diets that you may have seen in the media that may not be right for you, may not be right for a number of people. We'll go over the reasons why and how to compose a healthy plate using MyPlate and different ways you can include your favorite foods using MyPlate. And how to achieve long-term success with your nutrition and your health goals. So let's get started. Okay. So in the nutrition world, there's a lot of marketing towards weight loss. There's a lot of supposed quick fixes that target consumers looking for a magic pill. So within all of this, you will find fad diet. So a fad diet is a diet that becomes popular for a short time, similar to a fad in fashion, without being a standard recommendation for a diet, and often making unreasonable claims for fast weight loss or health improvements. So fad diets can also be considered yo-yo diets, which is weight cycling. It's another term for weight cycling, where we get into this vicious cycle of restriction and binging, and our weight fluctuates. So when we're making any changes to our health or nutrition, it's important that we include the proper parties. So our physicians, our registered dietitians, at ShopRite, we do provide free nutrition counseling with our dietitians. So it's a free service that you can definitely utilize to your advantage to help you sift through all of the misinformation that is out there. Nobody else is qualified to give you individualized nutrition care the way that we are. So I'm sure you've heard that Americans have a very tumultuous relationship with dieting. I don't speak for all dietitians, but I will tell you that embarking on a quick fix restrictive diet will not get you the long-term results that you're probably looking for. So I don't exactly love the term diet. I really prefer the term lifestyle, because you should be making changes that you're able to sustain in the long run, including foods that you enjoy in moderation and, capitalizing on what we're doing most of the time. Some companies and diet fads have picked up on this use of the word lifestyle, and they have included it in some of their branding and marketing. Something to keep in mind. So I will teach you ways that we can kind of look into advertising of different diets and different ways of eating and be able to identify those red flags. So I'm going to teach you 3 ways to spot a fad diet. And within these 3 ways, we're going to talk about the diets that fall into these categories of the red flags. So the first way that you can spot a fad diet, you have to ask yourself, is it trying to make you cut out an entire food group? So you shouldn't be eliminating entire food categories like carbohydrates or fruit or grains. That level of restriction can cause low blood sugar, hormone imbalances, binging on the foods that we're cutting out. We need balance of the 3 macronutrients. So that's protein, fats, and carbohydrate in order to feel satisfied and full and energized. If we are not satisfied and full and energized, we are more likely to binge or overdo it on foods that may hinder our success. Some examples of diets that ask that you cut out whole food groups: ketogenic diet, aka keto, Whole30, Paleo, Arbonne 30 Days to Healthy Living, and the carnivore diet. So diet culture often creates a negative connotation within these diets that ask you to cut out food groups, assigning different foods as good or bad. There are no good foods, there are no bad foods, there are just foods. So how do we think that this affects our relationship with food? It creates this never-ending battle of, should I eat this? Should I not eat this? We ask ourselves 100 food questions per day. So this just creates a lot of complication in our daily lives when it's totally not necessary to assign foods as good or bad. We just have to learn how to incorporate the foods that we enjoy, incorporate foods that will serve us, that are healthy for us, and learn how to do that in a way that doesn't feel restrictive. So when we're looking to achieve good, sustainable health goals or weight loss, whatever our goals are, what does that relationship look like in some of these diets in the real world? On the keto diet, what does that look like when you're out, picking off cheese from a pizza and not eating the rest of it? On the Whole30 diet, eliminating calcium rich dairy from your diet. So, if you're somebody that doesn't really eat a lot of green vegetables and this diet is asking you to eliminate dairy and you're not eating a lot of fortified foods, where are you getting your calcium? And paleo diet, no grains, no legumes, no dairy, no refined sugars. How complicated is that food order when you go out to eat? So, we want to make sure that we are able to follow a healthy diet, but we're not restricting to the point where life becomes miserable. So, I'll teach you how to do that. We'll go to the next slide. So, we're going to go into a little bit more depth on some of these diets that we talked about are cutting out food groups. So, ketogenic diet is probably gotten the most traction in the past several years. I will tell you that this diet was not created for weight loss. I actually did rotations in a children's hospital in a NICU where this diet was actually properly used. So it was initially created to decrease seizure activity in children with epilepsy that don't respond to normal medications. So it's supposed to be a 4-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio of fat to protein. That's it, just pure fat to protein. So what that does is it tricks the brain into metabolic starvation and uses the main source of fuel as fat and muscle. So it basically breaks down fat and muscle instead of using your preferred source of fuel, which is carbohydrate, which is not really safe for most people. So a lot of people may report that they find they are losing weight. However, the long-term effects of being on this diet are way too dangerous. It's just not meant for weight loss. It can cause irreversible damage and calcification of the heart. Just in 4 months, they've done studies. In embarking on this diet, you can create problems that never go away, essentially. It can cause rapid loss of muscle and fat, which can result in gallstones and emergency surgery in some cases, and low blood sugar, fainting, shakes, crankiness, pancreas problems. It's not something that's recommended, especially for diabetics. It could be very dangerous. So, as far as weight loss, this is not a diet that is intended for weight loss, and it's generally just not safe unless done for the right reasons, which is for epilepsy and seizure activity by a medical professional. It's not for weight loss. The next diet I'm going to go over is the Whole30. So the Whole30 is essentially a cutout of grains and dairy, not intended for long-term use. So it's a 30-day diet. It might not help with weight loss because, again, what happens at the end of those 30 days? Are we going back to what we were doing? The only thing that might be helpful for some people is the elimination of foods that gets reintroduced. Some people claim that there are some foods that were bothering them that they didn't realize until they eliminated them and brought them back into their diet. But it can also lead to unnecessary restrictions and food phobias and disordered eating. So we want to make sure that we're making changes that are not for a short period of time. We're doing small changes and we are kind of embarking on them for the long term. We don't want those 30-day fixes. We don't want those 14-day fixes. Next, we are going to talk about these next two that cut out food groups. So the paleo diet and the carnivore diet. So paleo diet typically cuts out grains, dairy, potatoes, vegetable oils, legumes. It's supposed to be the way that our ancestors ate, but there's a reason our ancestors only lived until they were 30. So a lot of nutrients are lost when we cut out these foods from our diet. There are claims that these foods cause inflammation. However, the whole grains in addition to probiotic dairy can reduce inflammation. So the milk gets a bad rap, but when we're talking about probiotic and yogurt, kefir, and different things like that, it's actually beneficial for our anti-inflammatory intake. And it can be high in nutrients to eat a less processed diet. However, you don't have to cut out all these food groups to do that. Carnivore diet is pretty self-explanatory. It's high in saturated fat, which is something we definitely want to limit and keep to an absolute minimum if we can. It cuts out all other food groups: meat, dairy, vegetables, grains, fruits, and it can be expensive. It's not recommended, especially if you have heart disease in your family, and it can cause constipation and digestive issues. Having a high intake of meat and low intake of fiber can lead to colorectal cancer. So definitely not something we want to have as our primary diet. We want to have a diverse diet that has a lot of different variety, different sources of nutrients. So definitely not something any dietitian would recommend. The second way that we can spot a fad diet: does it make you replace meals with a special proprietary shake or a food kit or a juice or a bar? So oftentimes these diets can cause a calorie deficit, which you can achieve without these products. So calorie deficit we'll talk more about in the later slides. But essentially it is eating a little bit less than your normal, or a little bit less than the amount of energy that you're using. So that can be achieved by eating a high amount of fruits and vegetables that are higher in water content, just as satisfying and filling, less calories. So you can definitely achieve a calorie deficit without using a special shake. And then sometimes these companies will offer kickbacks to employees. So it's kind of like the multi-level marketing you might have heard of going around the internet. It's more about profiting off of the vulnerability of people that are looking for help than actually these people actually trying to help you. So what happens after the diet? You're going to probably go back to similar eating patterns from before. It's going to be difficult to maintain this in the long term. And then we have meal replacement kits, which can be very processed. I have one on the right here. It's the Jenny Craig kit. There's also Nutrisystem. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's still really processed food that is essentially sold shelf stable. And they recommend, on top of spending, $400, $500 for the week, that you buy fruits and vegetables in addition to that. So factor that all in together. You could just kind of make your own meals at home that are simple. And we'll go over some options instead of spending all of this money on this kit of essentially processed food. You shouldn't solely rely on meal replacements. It can cause a unhealthy relationship with food. There are a lot of meal replacement shakes on the market, which I don't always recommend unless it's somebody is trying to get more calories in and doesn't have time to like make a snack. But typically, a meal should be anywhere from 500 to 800 calories, depending on your needs. A lot of these shakes are only 200 to 300, so it's not going to keep you full. It's not going to make you feel good. It's just basically, again, a calorie deficit. If you like smoothies, you can totally make your own at home for much, much cheaper. And your ShopRite dietitian can provide you with any smoothie recipes or quick meal ideas that may help you in the long run with your successes for your health goals. We can talk more about this later, but some of these meal kits promise a lot of your favorite foods in them and close to a full week of food. So in that one box, that's a full week of food. So what inference can we make about the kit? It's going to have tiny portions. I mean, you can totally have pizza on a healthy diet, and it doesn't have to be this big. You can definitely have a normal slice of pizza on a healthy diet and include things like vegetables and salads without eating a pizza the size of a bagel bite. So that's what you're going to find in a lot of these meal kits. So, what I do in my practice is I teach how to incorporate these foods in everyday life. Excuse me. All right. All right. So, we're going to talk about the Arbonne 30 Days to Healthy Living Detox Diet. So, this is another short term, hundreds of dollars, not evidenced by science type diet. It asks that you take 13 of their proprietary supplements, not evaluated by the FDA. So, no supplements are evaluated by the FDA. They're only really necessary if you have potential for malabsorption or some other chronic issues going on. I generally recommend to get your nutrition from food first. And this one also claims to detox you. This is a word that diet companies love to use, detox. It does not mean anything. You have a liver, you have kidneys, unless you are chronically and deathly ill, you do not need anything to help you detox. It is just a blanket statement to kind of make you feel like you need it. There is no evidence for weight loss on this diet or increased metabolism. The ways that you can support your already working metabolism is by exercising, by eating frequently. So there's no evidence for this diet. The encouraged movement and low calorie shakes are what could cause weight gain with this. But again, you can do that without spending hundreds of dollars on this 30-day detox. It's not a real detox. So you got to be careful. Okay. And then this is a new popular one, but again, when you learn what it is, you'll know why this is not something that I would recommend or any dietitian may recommend. This is a prolonged fasting mimicking diet. So it essentially, the catch is that it's trying to trick your body into thinking that you're fasting by eating very, very low calories. The kit is like $250. It contains 5 days worth of tea, tiny olive packs, and kale chips. It is very low calorie, higher in fat to kind of keep you fuller. However, there's only 800 to 1200 calories in the kit. That is not enough. And again, calorie deficit, but it's not healthy. It's actually dangerous to be eating that little. And it could put you on the path to an eating disorder to embark on one of these kits. Fasting is not appropriate for many people, especially if you exercise regularly, you're pregnant, you're malnourished, you have a neurological disorder, or any form of diabetes, and it can cause a hypoglycemic emergency. So this is where things get a little sticky. Some journals on their website they claim are peer reviewed or it's evidenced by science, but they are made by they're done by their own team. So it's kind of like, a conflict of interest. When dietitians go to school, we learn how to evaluate research, how to determine, is this coming from a good source? A lot of the research that they use is research that's from intermittent fasting, which is completely different. So it's like, apples and oranges. You can't really attribute the effects of one diet type to another totally different, diet box. Attempts to align the diet with traditional articles about intermittent fasting, it's not a selling point for me. You can lose an average of 5 pounds, but could be your water weight. It's marketed as a kickstart the new year product. be careful of those. That's another type of terminology that tries to um, gather vulnerable people that may be looking for a quick fix. Not appropriate with a history of yo yo dieting, weight cycling, or disordered eating. Studies have shown that using intermittent fasting is no more effective than a standard calorie deficit. So, again, you can definitely achieve the same results, and if not more, just by adjusting the amount of calories that you eat each day. Okay. This is another really popular one around this time of year, juice cleanses. So again, we talked about detoxing. Unless you're actively in liver failure, you don't need a detox. You are already uh, detoxed by your liver and kidneys. It's a term that is not going to go away anytime soon. So at least we know what to do with it. It is all sugar and no fiber when you juice fruit and vegetables. So I generally recommend try to juice things. If you enjoy juice, try to juice green things. Include a little bit of sweeter fruit, but try to keep it, to a minimum just to give it a little bit more of a taste because you're missing out on that fiber. And when you're drinking, a large juice, like an orange juice, you're just getting sugar. It's essentially the same as soda. It's like soda with added vitamin C. So it can get expensive if you're not making it at home. Would you pay $250 for 7 days of sugar when you could pay 20 for the equivalent in whole fruit? So some things to ask ourselves. It's not appropriate for anybody with sugar control issues to do a juice cleanse. You can be well over your carbohydrate and sugar maximum for the meal and the day by trying a juice cleanse if you're watching your blood sugar. And what about going to the bathroom? So it's just sugar, it's just hydration. It could cause some not so expected trips to the restroom. And then celery juice, for example, I get this question all the time. If somebody's losing weight on celery juice, is it the celery juice or is it something else? Again, it's a calorie deficit. You're just essentially drinking water. You're having some micronutrient benefit, but at the end of the day, you're just drinking water. You're not really eating anything. So that's what would cause a weight loss. And vitamins, there's a comparison I have here on the right. So this is raw generation sweet roots. It has apple, carrot, beet, and lemon. And it has 35 grams of sugar, which is more than, I believe this is a Snickers here on the bottom. So that's one juice, and it's got about the same, if not more, this is a little bit more carbs, aka sugar, than a Snickers. And you could say, okay, but there's some potassium in my juice that I'm drinking it for the potassium. Okay, but 2 tomatoes have the same amount of potassium. So would you prefer to just eat a wholesome meal and still be at that calorie deficit and not spend hundreds of dollars on juices? I know I would. So juice can be part of a very healthy diet. However, it's how much. When you're making a smoothie, I typically recommend sticking to a maximum of 1 cup of fruit per smoothie. If it's a single serve, and then just multiplying out for however many portions you're making. And one portion of pure 100% juice is 4 ounces. So I like to just kind of keep those numbers in mind because it's very easy to overdo it with juice, but fruit is not the enemy. Okay. This is another one I get all the time. This is detox teas. So a lot of detox teas have promises of stimulating detoxing with senna, licorice, magnesium hydroxide. But we've learned that your body is amazing. It is already detoxing. So these are just laxatives, essentially. These can cause excessive bowel movements, dehydration, malabsorption, and they can be damaging for people with bulimia. In the clinical world, this is considered a form of purging. So if anybody tells me that they are on one of these, I have a lot of other questions to ask about why they might have chosen this product because it can be a very slippery slope. Some tea supplements actually will tell you on the box to not eat. What happens when you don't eat and you're taking a laxative supplement? It's just not something to include. They claim for you to lose X amount of pounds in X amount of days, but not all weight loss is fat loss. Our weight fluctuates with our water intake, our bowel movements, and our food intake. If we had alcohol that day, if we've been exercising, there's so many factors. So weight really, it's not the greatest indicator of health, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Some teas contain appetite suppressants, which again, that's not something I ever want any of my customers or clients taking, because we want to nourish your current appetite. We want to make sure that you are satiated. And how can you know if you're satiated if your appetite is suppressed? So some of these appetite suppressants to watch out for: Garcinia cambogia, tamarind, or hydroxycitric acid. They can disrupt your hunger and your fullness hormones, which is not good in the long term for being more understanding of our body and how our nutrition is being utilized. These detoxes also can result in pregnancy. They may cause your contraception to not work. And they have been shown to flush out certain medications with the laxatives that are in the tea. So this is something that they don't really tell you on the packaging. This is one of the top fad diets that can lead to disordered eating and eating disorders. So definitely do not recommend. Okay. I added this slide because I thought it would be helpful to kind of give a little bit more background into the language of how these products are advertised. So the greatest question is, why are people buying these products if they don't really work? Well, they use targeted clinical sounding language to get your trust and influence you. Colon cleanse. They're using more like medicinal, physiological sounding terms. They assign a time frame just to get you to come back to buy it. 28-day detox, daily detox tea. They use natural or feminine packaging with hearts, leaves, flowers, pinks, purples, yoga poses. It is not a mistake. Companies know that as women, we are always preoccupied with our weight status. We see it in social media, we see it on TV, we see it in magazines. So they are just capitalizing on that. And we are more prone to disordered eating with quick fixes and magic pill solutions. There is no magic pill. I will tell you what the actual magic pill is, but it takes time. Subjective language is the last thing that they use. Healthy, 100% natural, wholesome, makes you feel great. According to who? You may be surprised to learn that this terminology actually means nothing. These are all moot terms that have no bearing on a food label. So something to keep in mind when you're in the store. Okay. The last step to spotting a fad diet: does it challenge you or challenge a certain time frame or give you a small window of time to eat within? Lasting weight loss does not take place over 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. What happens when the challenge is over? You'll feel lost. You'll feel like you have to do another restrictive challenge or go back to cheat meals. This is a cycle of yo-yoing. We want to avoid this. It's not going to teach you to build sustainable habits when you keep going on these quick fixes. You're back to square one. So we should be building upon what you currently do, making small changes. So I meet people where they're at. If a customer comes to me with a very high-end, processed foods diet, I meet them where they're at. We find better options within their capabilities, and then we go from there, and then we add in little by little. So effective lifestyle changes, they start with where you're at and what you're able to add in slowly, and week by week, you're adding in different recipes or different meals that you may not have tried when you're out to eat that are a little bit healthier. So I had to include a couple of books just that kind of put into perspective some of the things that we see, the 14-day rapid fat loss diet. There is no diet or exercise that specifically targets an area for fat loss, especially belly fat loss. No way of exercising or dieting that does that. 7-day diet plan. And I had to include Dr. Oz. I get this all the time. Should I listen to Dr. Oz? He's a doctor. Doctors versus dietitians debate settled. Hire the right qualified professional for the job. So this is not enough food for a day. I would not recommend this. Yes, he is a doctor, but I will leave the heart surgery to Dr. Oz, and I will leave the nutrition advice to the dietitians. Okay, so this is our starting point for sustainable meal planning with MyPlate. So MyPlate is adaptable for everywhere you go. You can adjust MyPlate at a buffet, at home, making lunch. It teaches portions. So we want to make sure half of our plate is fruits and vegetables. A quarter of our plate is a serving of grains. We are getting a serving of protein the size of a deck of cards, and we're getting a serving of dairy at the meal. We want to aim to have at least 3 of the MyPlate categories. I usually try to say veggies, grains, and protein, at least. Dairy and fruit, you can add in via snacks to kind of get that broken down throughout the day. But generally, the rule of thumb for most people, just try to get at least 3 in. It encourages variety. So the more color that you add to your plate, the more different nutrients that you're getting. It combines macronutrients for fullness. So our protein, our fat, our carbohydrate, we want to combine these because at the end of the day, our body needs a protein to make sure that we are getting enough nutrition. We need grains and we need carbohydrate to get enough energy to fuel us to the next portion of the day. And we need veggies and healthy fats that we can cook those veggies in to keep us fuller and to bulk up our meals. So definitely important to include as many of these categories as you can, and your dietitian can help you understand portioning on a more on a greater, deeper level. And choosemyplate.gov provides a ton of free resources. So recipes, planning guides, there are different ways that you can print out handouts about how to improve your hydration, how to include more fiber, different sources of foods. It really just kind of like simplifies everything. So I usually recommend this way of doing things, and we'll talk about what that looks like in the next slides, because having a meal plan and giving somebody a meal plan in the new year and expecting them to cook several different recipes at the beginning of the week, it can get complicated, especially if you're not a cook. So this is just a really easy way to teach people how to build simpler meals that will help them fit their goals. So this is how my plate kind of looks. And this is Food Network's MyPlate page. So these are all Food Network recipes. The link is at the bottom. And basically we're getting all of our different food groups on here. So for example, there are fruit, there's veggies. I believe this is a protein pasta with spinach. And then on this slide, we have some protein in our tacos. I think they might be tofu tacos or pork tacos with veggies on top, 2 servings of corn tortilla for our grain, and we have some fruit on the side. So we're trying to get at least 3 of those categories. And then again, we have on this side, we have salmon, we have a whole grain roll, we have kale. So it's super varied. It's a great way to learn how to build your plate because you can literally turn anything into MyPlate. And I just prefer a simpler way to go about it instead of very rigid, specific meal plans. It can be very overwhelming. And it's the little things. So choosing a couple of, options like this throughout the week and then expanding upon it and adding in more and adding in more, in the long term, it'll give you the greatest success. Hold on. Okay. So these are my new and improved New Year's resolution. So rethinking our relationship with our scales. So your weight is the least interesting thing about you. Tracking weight is fine. We can do it weekly if we want, but what we don't want to do is punish ourselves at the slightest fluctuation. I mentioned before, there are so many things that affect our weight status, our hydration, our food intake, athletics, bowel movements, water retention. It's impossible to blame a pound of that you gained on a food that you ate yesterday. So if you're pursuing weight loss, exercise is definitely important in getting there. Also, finding exercises that make us feel good is crucial. But we don't want to, again, incorporate it as a form of punishment. We don't want to go to the gym right after eating a burger. We want to have a good relationship with our eating and a supportive and positive relationship with our exercise regimen. So when you lose weight, fat specifically, it's broken down into, and this is going to be a little technical, but I'll explain why it's important. It breaks that down into water, so through urine or sweat, and carbon dioxide. So it's essential if you're trying to lose fat to exercise because you're breathing out the fat. A lot of people think that fat is lost in different ways through our bowel movements. But actually, for every 10 pounds of fat that you lose, you are breathing out 8 pounds of it through carbon dioxide. So that's my favorite fun fact about weight loss. It's being expelled through your lungs. So any diet claiming to melt fat, burn fat, wipe away fat doesn't know the first thing about human physiology. My next tip is getting back to including the foods that we enjoy, like pizza, for example. So this is like a guacamole, Spanish-inspired type pizza, tostada on a whole wheat pita. This will create the most sustainable eating for you, including the foods that you like in ways that don't hinder your success. And my last tip is learning some 5 to 10 minute meals. I'm a chef, but I really don't recommend very rigid meal prepping. I mean, it's great to have a plan. I always recommend going into things with a plan, but at the end of the day, we want simple, we want easy, we want healthy, we want fresh. We don't have to spend a lot of money to do it. We don't have to spend a lot of time to do it. So this is my not so secret secrets to lasting weight loss. Increased movement. So it's recommended that we get 150 minutes of moderate intensity workouts or 75 minutes of high intensity, vigorous aerobic exercise per week. Studies have found that strength training is key for weight loss, especially. Resistance training, there was a new study about how it can help with your insulin resistance. So the more we're exercising, we're improving our body's ability to use insulin and break down carbohydrates. So the more exercise that we do, the more that we're helping our body's natural processes of metabolism. Exercising also increases the amount of energy that's used and burned. And when you have a higher muscle composition, so when you have more muscles in your body, it allows you to burn more calories while you're resting, and it supports improved metabolism. So you definitely want to do things that are supporting you building muscle. That's why strength training is so effective for weight loss. We want to keep in mind that consistency is super important as well. So increased frequency of physical activity and increased frequency of positive dietary choices. It's what you do most of the time. We definitely want to get out of that cycle of being very on top of things and then just quitting for 3 days and then being very on top of things and quitting for 3 days. You don't ever have to feel like I screwed up my diet. I guess I'll just start tomorrow. You could just kind of stick to what you're doing as best as you can. Don't punish yourself. Every day is a new day. The other thing that is important, the other side of it is a calorie deficit. So I mentioned this before. A 500 calorie deficit each day, meaning 500 calories less than what you normally have, for 1 week amounts to about 1 pound or 3,500 calories at the end of the week. So this varies on how much exercise you're doing, specific needs, and you should be eating enough to match your activity level. But when you're exercising on top of eating a calorie deficit, but you're eating enough calories to support your exercise, you are supporting weight loss, but you're also keeping full and satiating yourself. Counting calories is not something that I recommend to do forever, but this top picture here, I like to just kind of look at to give perspective how I like to kind of look at calories. So when you're building your plate, what's the difference here? It's a double portion of salmon and it's a larger portion of noodles here. What's swapped out? A smaller portion of salmon and more greens and less noodles. So it makes a big difference. I don't recommend reading 100 food labels every day and getting obsessed about it, but I like to kind of recommend looking at different pictures of portions and kind of putting it into perspective that way, how much calories we're getting when our portions are changed a little bit. And this one, for example, so this calories here are much less because we're using a little bit less sauce. We're using half the amount of protein, and we're using less starch, and a little bit less of the grain here. But we're still making a very healthy meal. So putting portions into perspective, and kind of understanding what meals are fitted within your specific macronutrient needs, that's where it can be useful. So there are studies, there's actually a study in the past several months about exercise versus just nutrition versus exercise and nutrition. It's probably a good guess that exercise and nutrition was the most effective for weight loss and for overall health benefit. So the reason for that is simple. We are supporting our metabolism by exercising, and we are fueling that exercise with our nutrition. So combining the two is essential for lasting weight loss. And my last tip, my last secret to sustaining weight loss long term, finding easy, doable staple meals and snacks that are not too difficult. And your dietitian can sit down with you and calculate your needs to help find meals that fit within these different levels of calories and protein and fat, to kind of put in perspective what it should look like for you. All foods can fit. So the last point I have here as far as weight loss goes, a meta-analysis in 2021 found that you don't necessarily need to lose weight to be healthy. Just including physical activity reduces your mortality risk. So we put a lot of stock on losing weight and looking a certain way, but at the end of the day, just including some healthy habits can go a long way. Some new exercises here and there. Okay, we are on to our demo just in time. So I am demoing today the wrap hack, or the TikTok tortilla trend. I had no idea what this was until I watched a video a couple months ago, and my boyfriend loves when I make these. They're super simple, and there are a lot of perks to them. So you can make it in under 5 minutes. It helps to put portioning into perspective. You could do sweet, you could do savory. You don't need to roll the wrap like a burrito. I am a chef, but I can't roll a burrito for my life. And they're make ahead friendly. They fit better in a lunchbox if you're making lunch for someone or yourself. They're easier to eat, I find, and they're funner to make, and a great activity for kids. So I'm making 2 different kinds today. Let me just get my camera started. Can we hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
So I have 2 tortillas. I'm making 2 different kinds. I have my ingredients for all of them. I know it looks like a lot. it'll be quick. Okay. And try to make this look as pretty as possible. So I'm doing 2 today. I'm doing one that is like a Crunchwrap type, like a Mexican tortilla style wrap pack, and I'm gonna do a Greek burger one. So the first one I'll do is the Mexican one. So I have, get my glove. All right, so first I have to cut this. So I'm just cutting from the center, like the center of the cloth, to 6 o'clock. I'm not cutting all the way through. I'm just making basically 4 quadrants. So this is 1 quadrant, this is the 2nd quadrant, this is the 3rd quadrant, this is the 4th quadrant. So first I'm going to put on my ground meat. So I made some ground chicken with a little bit of seasoning. So I used a little bit of cumin and garlic and onions. And since I find that ground chicken is a little bit lower in fat, and it's a little more, like it separates a little bit more, so I want it to stay together, I put a little tiny bit of refried beans in with it. So this is my refried beans. I put a little bit just to kind of help it stay. So I'm putting my chicken here. And I want to fit it within the quadrant here. All right, that's about good. So about a 3-ounce portion for our proteins. Then I want to put my low-fat cheddar cheese. I have low-fat cheddar cheese here from ShopRite, 2%. This is going in this quadrant. I don't think I need all of it. Maybe a little more cheese. Doesn't hurt. And this is a whole wheat tortilla. This is actually a high fiber tortilla. I think it's like actually 10 grams of carbs, but it's got a load of fiber in it. And I'm getting some fiber too with my refried beans. So I'm gonna do some refried beans here. So I'm only really using what I need to spread on here. I don't need to put like a whole portion of refried beans. I'm just spreading it in this quadrant here. So this is going to add some fiber, some more protein. I bought low sodium refried beans in the store. You can totally just mash your own. It's totally fine. Okay, so I have 3 quadrants done. I'm also going to add, I have some diced tomato. I'm going to put that in this section. And I also have, let's see if I can make this. I also have sour cream. So I'm going to put some sour cream here. Just like a tablespoon. I feel like that's a little too much. It's like a tablespoon. It's about good. And then I'm going to use my avocado. So you could use, I mean, a half of avocado if you want to be fuller. I only need like, I think a quarter. So I'm adding my avocado here. Just going to fan it out so I get a little bit in each bite. And because I need 1,000 toppings for some reason, some lettuce. So I have romaine. These are great and easy for just, you know, kind of cleaning out your fridge. You can make a wrap pack out of everything. You can make like a buffalo chicken one. You could do, I'm doing a burger one. You could do peanut butter, you could do banana. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this quadrant with the meat, and I'm going to fold it right into here, pack everything in there nice. And then I'm going to fold it again. Sorry. Fold it again right into here, press down. And then I'm going to fold it one last time here. So what I get is this cute little crunch wrap, essentially, like a cone. So this packs very nicely into a container. It doesn't fall apart when you try to open it up like a burrito would. And you can also, sometimes I'll put this like in a griddle pan and I'll melt the cheese. I have another option I'm going to do for you, or you could do it in the air fryer. But this is cool to eat right now if I wanted to. So I'm going to put that one on the side. And then we're going to try our Greek one. So this one, I just, I bought 1 pack of ground chicken. So I got about maybe 2.5 servings of like taco meat, and I took enough just to make 1 burger. So this is my 1 burger. It's a grilled chicken burger. So I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm going to cut this down. I have my burger. I have, let's see, tzatziki, which I love. So this is essentially a yogurt cucumber dill sauce. So I'm just going to use a little bit of that. I like it directly like on the burger just because I think it tastes the best. Okay. So this burger I just cooked in a pan at medium to high heat until the interior is 165. And what I'll do is we'll pretend that this is my thermometer. I stick my thermometer in this way instead of going this way because I don't want to touch the pan. The pan might be super hot. If I go in this way, I know I'm getting the center and I know that I'm going to get the right temperature that way. I'm going to add some shallot because I didn't have any red onion, tomato. I have some arugula that I'm going to put in this quadrant here. I have some bias cut cucumbers. So I think I'm going to stick these. I'm going to put them over here. I think that'll work. And I have some tomatoes too. So you can essentially make this whatever you want. That's why I like it, because I can customize it. I think that's good. So I'm gonna start folding this guy. Might be a little too, no, it's actually, yeah, that works. I was like, I think it'd be too big. I'm gonna fold it right into this quadrant. And then I have my lettuce. I think I might next time put this guy over here. I'll put my tomatoes in here. It's a learning experience. And I'll put my cucumbers over here. And I might, let me see, I might add a little more binder here. Just want it to stick to something. Okay, that's better. Cooking is about a feeling. Okay, so we're gonna flip this. I'm gonna fold this. And we have another wrap. And this time it's a burger wrap. So I have these made. So the way that I would make a meal for myself using this wrap hack, I'll take this. So I have my veggies, I have my protein, I have some healthy fat, and I'm gonna just add on the side to get even more veggie and more volume. If we're looking for weight loss, I'm gonna add some of my favorite carrot chips. So these we sell at ShopRite. I must talk about these at least 3 times a day because they're like my favorite thing. So again, 50% of the plate, vegetables. And I could add some additional dip here if I wanted to, but essentially I'm getting a nice full meal. And since I'm eating such a low carb meal, I could totally do dessert with this. I could totally do a scoop of ice cream. So that's kind of what it's about. It's about being able to, work things in and create a satisfying meal that you can customize and it can be a part of your day. Instead of instead of having tiny, tiny portions of the foods you love, you can still work in the foods that you love eating like this. So that's my wrap hack. I'm gonna switch my camera. All right.
All right, can we hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. We'll get off this. Okay. All right, go to the next slide. So these are just some ideas for 5 to 10 minute meals. These are off of another dietitian that I follow on one of the socials. It puts into perspective how to build a healthy meal. I added in a couple of photos to make it even more balanced. So on the top, there is, I believe, some turkey melts. They're on roasted regular red peppers instead of bread. I added some beans in there for starch. It comes with guac, which is a healthy fat, and some carrot sticks. And I also have here, there's a broccoli stir fry slaw. We actually sell that at ShopRite with a piece of fish. And I added a cup of fruit to that just to make it more balanced. We have a healthy lunch box over here with some fruit, some cheese, some tacos with salmon, veggies, corn tortillas. It's just about finding that balance. And then there are some Brussels sprouts here with some crab cakes. This is pretty balanced. There are some carbohydrate in the crab cakes. However, I would definitely add some fruit for some fiber. Broccoli and Brussels sprouts are great for fiber too. And then on the right, I have a chicken nugget salad, totally fine. You can totally add some grains too if you wanted to for additional fiber. But this is an example of balance, finding those foods that you like and finding ways to work them in and make them satisfying and delicious. Okay. So this is my last slide spiel about what it is to be a ShopRite dietitian. We provide one-on-one nutrition counseling. It's completely free, unlimited. It's medical nutrition therapy. So we look at your lab work. We look at food labels with you. We helped you sift through what's important, what's not important with the food label, and how to kind of choose products that are right for you in the store. We have classes, we do corporate wellness events, cooking demonstrations, and they're all custom. So whatever you're looking for, we can probably accommodate. And we do community outreach. So we are at health fairs, college resource fairs, farmers markets, senior centers, schools, trying to help our communities lead healthier lifestyles. So this is my contact information. If you have any questions, I can totally take them now. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Allie. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to ask them. Again, you can either put your questions in the Q&A or in the chat box because I'll be looking at both. We did have a couple questions that came in while you were doing your presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and read them out loud to you. This first question came in, I believe, while you were doing this slide on exercising. What is resistance training?
So resistance training is like those rubber bands that you might use to stretch. They're rubber bands. They have handles, just kind of like using resistance or force to incorporate that kind of exercise.
Fantastic. Thank you. The second question, what is the worst fad diet you've encountered?
Keto. Keto, because like it's everywhere and there's so much information that can be confusing to a lot of people because it is a scientific diet. It was created for scientific reasons, but it was not created for weight loss. It was adapted from its initial intention to help people with epilepsy. And now it's just totally taken out of context. And it's, I worked in hospitals for my first 2 years as a dietitian. And I would have people coming in with gallstones, they needed surgery. When you're eating that amount of fat, it's not good for your heart. It's not good for your metabolism. And on top of that, it affects your body's ability to make enough bile to handle that amount of fat. And when you can't handle that, you're going to start taking hits on your body. So definitely not recommended.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question, can you talk more about intermittent fasting? Is it healthy?
Right. So there's different kinds of intermittent fasting. There's the 5-hour fast, there's 16 to 8 hours. Generally, it's not recommended if you can't go without a meal for a certain period of time. So that's why I talk about diabetics. It's not really that much more helpful than a calorie deficit. So some people find that when they deprive themselves of a certain amount of food for a certain amount of hours, they tend to eat less. But that might affect our hunger hormones, our leptin and our ghrelin in the morning, and it might cause us to eat more as soon as we're allowing ourselves to eat past that window. So if people are losing weight on it, it's because of the calorie deficit, but you don't need to do intermittent fasting to get those benefits. And I generally don't recommend it for I want people to be exercising and active. And it's hard to do that when you're limiting what you can eat during certain periods when you should be fueling your body. So that's why.
Thank you. The next question, it looks like is a follow-up to a previous question. Is lifting weights considered resistance training?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Is lifting weights considered resistance training?
So it depends. So like in the gym, there are certain contraptions that allow you to pull. So that's kind of like resistance training. But as far as lifting weights is more strength training.
Thank you. The next is actually a comment. This is super useful information in a country where access to healthy food should be the norm and education for healthy eating should be taught at school. This is a huge gap in our education agenda. So thank you for doing this presentation.
Course. I totally agree.
The next thing, this is super fun and informative. What is your top VIP weight loss tips?
My top tip is to not cut out the foods that you enjoy. Eat dessert. That's my number one. My number one thing is eat dessert. Know what a healthy portion of dessert looks like. So I like to recommend sticking to about 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrate for a dessert. So portioned ice cream packs, bars that have some protein in them that are satisfying, that satisfy your sweet tooth. Chocolate hummus is a thing. Finding those foods that fit in, that you can include, that aren't going to put you over the edge. So I never buy tubs of ice cream in my house. I only buy portioned ice cream pops, stuff that I know is counted. So that's my number one tip. Eat dessert and know your portions.
Fantastic. The next question, what's the best way to support an obese spouse who has serious portion control issues? He exercises, but it is a hopeless foodie. What's step one for him?
Give him my number. I can definitely help. But step one is finding the foods that he likes and finding ways to add things into them that make them more nutritious. I wouldn't start, I never ask anybody to eat salad right off the bat and change the way they eat entirely. That's not how we get lasting change. We want to improve the foods that they're already eating. So if you're making chili, add more veggies, add more peppers, add more onions, add more beans. If you're making burgers, you can always swap out some of the meat with ground mushroom, which can improve the nutrient content of it and reduce the calories and the fat. So there's ways that you can enjoy the foods that you typically love, and add more nutrition to them. So I think that's really important, finding what we like finding the flavor profiles that we like and how to add more nutrition, just by adding in like small swaps.
Fantastic. So that was the last question. So I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for coming out this evening.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you guys spending your time with us. And I want to say a big thank you to Ali as well for coming up and volunteering her time and energy to give this wonderful presentation. It was very educational and we very much enjoyed it. So thank you, Ali.
Thank you. My pleasure. This is my favorite presentation of the year.
Fantastic. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you all have a very nice evening and a happy new year.
Happy New
Good
Year,
night, everyone.
everyone.